Beautiful. So, welcome to the Enhance Your Psychic Abilities Masterclass. I'm looking forward to getting into all the teachings, and I'm looking forward to diving into the psychic senses, what they are, and how they've already been showing up for you as well. So, I'm just going to make sure everyone's on mute. So, if you're not on mute, please pop yourselves on mute. There we go. So, we're just going to speak about what may have drawn you here before we get into the teachings. So, some of you might be here because you're wanting to feel safe, relaxed, and provided for by life, by the universe, deeply trusting in life, deeply trusting in yourself, and that the universe has your back. And that can happen when we're connected to our intuition because we know that we're connected to this part of ourselves that can help guide us to what is right for us, that can support us in that feeling of no matter what happens, we're going to be okay because we're connected to this part of ourselves. We're held in that deep receivership and trust in our relationship to life and everything around it via our intuition. And, it can support that connection with your intuition, the feeling of always being provided for and taken care of. And this energy can come in when we're feeling that deep sense of connection to our intuition, which is also deep connection to self, because it's just another part of us, right? And also the universe, communicating with the universe, communicating with life around us. This is a work in progress, as it is for me, as it is for everyone I know. So we may dip in and out of this as well, and that trust, etc. You also might have been drawn here because you're wanting to be guided by your intuition in your everyday life so that you can make more aligned decisions. And so for some of you, it might be you've got some big life decisions to make and you're not sure which way to go. And you're like, oh, how do I tune into this? Or it could be the little things as well. And these big decisions, they're for us to learn to trust and back ourselves. But the more connected to our intuition, our soul, our guidance, etc., then the more we can back those decisions as well. And every decision that we make is an opportunity for us to get some kind of return on our energetic investment from our time, from our choices. Time is our most valuable currency because we can't get more of it, right? And also to follow what is most resonant to us and to our soul. And so you may be someone where you're wanting your intuition to help you tangibly make decisions more easily and faster as well, because you know what's in alignment with you and you know what isn't. And so it can be really supported in that way too. An example of this is if you're deciding to invest your time into a new skill or training or modality or business or relationship, friendship, career, etc., deciding if it's a good opportunity or not for you. How do you know this? These decisions come from within and come from the yearning of our soul or feeling aligned to these decisions through our intuition, through our body, etc. And so these decisions in these areas and the big decisions that we make are us deciding that these things are going to pay off or that they're going to be right for us. We're going to learn from them, etc. And so knowing how to make these aligned decisions can really, really support our everyday life, but also the pathway of our life as well, and that connection with what's right for us and our soul. Some of you might also be here because you're already receiving intuitive information. It's okay if you're not. And if you're here and you're like, I feel like I've never tuned in before, that's okay. I work with people from all levels. But some of you may be here from a space of you're having intuitive information come through and you want to be able to act on it and be able to discern the difference between if it's your mind or if it's your intuition, but you're not sure, or the self doubt's coming up. And so this is the question I get asked the most is how do I discern the difference between my intuition and my mind, right? And so it's a different feeling, it's a different texture. We'll speak more about it in a little bit, but the energy comes from a different place. But it does take time to really discern that because you have to learn to feel, read, and understand energy on a really subtle level with the psychic senses to know what's what. And so when you can discern that difference, it allows you to no longer be as much of a victim to your own mind, right? And to your own shadow that can take over through the ego, through the mind, the voice that says you can't, right? It gives you that empowerment to be the ultimate creator of your own reality because you can learn to alchemize your own shadow because your mind is no longer in charge. And it is really an ultimate take back of your power. It's ending that victim consciousness because you know when it's your mind taking over or when it's your intuition coming through. And it really supports you in becoming your own creator of your life because you're able to discern the difference and also discern when the mind is trying to tell you that you can't or that you shouldn't, etc. And so, in that, it really allows that true empowerment through connection to your intuition. Because for many of you, you're having intuitive information come through, but you're not acting on it because of the self doubt, because of the questioning, and the is this my mind or not, right? This is also a spectrum. It's a lifelong process, it's a lifelong evolutionary journey of cultivating deeper relationships with your mind, with your ego, with your patterns, your shadow, your thought process, and with your intuition so that you can discern and tell the difference and act on the intuitive information coming through. And so, with this, the more you continue to deepen into this work and this self understanding, the more your level of power over it also continues to deepen, as does mine. So, it's an ongoing process. Some of you might also be drawn here because you're wanting to do readings and step into a new modality and become a psychic reader and start your own business as a reader, doing something that you love and that you're passionate about. Some of you might be here because your soul called you here because you feel that this work is for you. Even if you've never read before, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. I know everyone that I've worked with has been able to do readings, right? So even if it's something that you're really drawn to, but you're like, I don't know if I can even do it, it's there. It's just about learning the right tools to deepen those parts of you. Some of you might be here because you're wanting to run your own business and the freedom of that and choosing your own hours and when and where you work and be locationally free. And so there's really beautiful parts of the soul fulfilling nature of this work as well as running your own business. So some of you might be in that space as well. And some of you might just be here for your own intuitive connection too. So there's no right or wrong. Some of you might also already be running your own business or working with clients or working with modalities like kinesiology or massage therapy or counseling, psychotherapy, psychology, etc., energy healing, Reiki. And so you might be someone where you already work with clients and you work with modalities that you've trained in, but you want to feel more connected to your intuition and your psychic abilities throughout your sessions and with your clients as well. And I find that really allows the sessions to be multidimensional with many different layers of depth that allows your intuition to guide the sessions instead of it being really structured and templated and following bit by bit of what you're taught to do, but it can actually really support whatever needs to come through for the client to come through and allow blind spots to be brought up or allowing a whole new level of depth because you might end up somewhere where you never would if you just follow the structure, etc. So I find that can really help as well with bringing your intuition and psychic abilities into your session. So some of you may be here from that space as well. And also, some of you may be here because you're just having a lot of synchronicities or signs or guidance from your intuition coming up or from the universe. And, these synchronicities are sometimes your soul speaking to you, sometimes your guides speaking to you, sometimes your intuition speaking to you, sometimes nature, or sometimes the universe speaking to you. It really just depends. But they're messages for you, right? And they're things that when those synchronicities happen, you're like, I can't ignore that. And so these can be around many different things, but usually they are messages for you about your soul's path or what is in alignment for you as well. So just noticing if synchronicities are showing up a lot for you at the moment as well, because that can be that feeling of being more in flow or more connected to your intuition. Some of you also may have been wanting to develop this part of you for a while now and feeling that pull to do that, but you keep putting it off and ignoring it and pushing it to the side. And I always ask, if not now, then when? If we don't create space to develop these aspects, these parts of ourselves, then they might not ever open up because a lot of people are waiting around for their intuition to just magically switch on one day. And that happens for a few people occasionally, but it's actually not super common. You get to take your power into your own hands with this work and learn tools to deepen with these parts of you because it can really allow so much to flourish. But having the right tools is what makes the biggest difference in choosing to develop these parts of self instead of just waiting for them to open up or to show up. And some of you might be here because you're more with the psychic hygiene side of things, feeling really sensitive and energetically overwhelmed at times. So you might be here because you're feeling really sensitive to other people's energies. And, when you walk into a room or go out to the supermarket or in your relational dynamics. And when you learn tools, psychic hygiene, energy protections, grounding tools, etc., you really expand your ability to hold more people without risking burnout in your career or being in hypervigilance mode in your relationships and friendships and life. And so now is really time to learn to get resourced to manage your energy, your sensitivity, so that you don't burn out and become emotionally overwhelmed in your connections with others and just in general as well. Learning how to manage your energy can give us more energy, and so that we don't go into that burnout in general, because it's something that we live in a society where we're so prone to that. And so I find learning to really be on top of and manage our energy and protecting our energy can help tenfold with our energy levels. You also, following on from that, might want to be creating daily sustainable life practices and psychic hygiene, energetic hygiene, etc., as we spoke about, so that you don't go into that overwhelm and burnout. And I find it's, especially if you're running your own business or you've got a lot on, it's really important to be able to manage your time, manage your energy, and manage your psychic hygiene so that you have the space to put energy into what you love as well. There can be so many aspects to burnout, so many physical parts, emotional aspects as well. But there are huge energetic aspects to burnout as well. And I've lived this myself. And learning to manage my energy properly has really, really helped. So, this skill alone can just support so much in life, especially if you go through burnout energetically at times. And also just touching on some questions that might come up for you as you're here in the class or with this work in general. A lot of people ask me, I want to connect to my intuition, I want to connect to my psychic senses, but what if I'm not special? What if I don't have any gifts? What if nothing comes up? Like, can I even connect into my intuition? Do I even have it? Right. And so, if there's one thing you walk away from tonight's class with, it's knowing that even if you feel like you've never connected to your intuition, even if you feel like you've never connected to your psychic abilities and psychic senses, you are absolutely still psychic and it's within you. So I really, really believe that we are all born psychic. You see it with children and animals. We'll speak more about that in a little bit. But we are born super open and then we start to close down those senses. And so, with that, it's something where the more you decondition from society telling us it's not even real or you can't connect to your intuition or it's not even a thing and everything's scientific, etc., the more you remember your innate gifts as well. Remembering that it was perceived as threatening. You've got the burning of the witches ancestrally. There can be a lot of fear with this work, and we'll talk about reasons why you might have blocked off your intuition as well in a little bit. But I say this with conviction that we're all psychic because I've sat in psychic development circles, mediumship development circles, as well as taught hundreds of students, hundreds. And I've never, ever seen anyone that wasn't able to do a psychic reading. Never have I had anyone that was completely blocked and just couldn't do it at all. And so in that, it's something to just recognize and notice in that, and through seeing so many people be able to work with these gifts, it's not about not having it. A lot of people think that you do need to be born really psychically open and in tune, and that's it, and you've either got it or you don't. But there are people that their senses, we're all born quite open, their senses didn't close down. And it's quite rare, right? For most of us and for many psychics, we've trained, right? I wasn't a super special open kid. I've gone through, and teenager, etc. I never felt connected to my intuition through my teenage years, but I've gone through the process of opening these parts of myself up because you can, right? When you're given the right tools. and the right templates, the symbology to connect in with the psychic senses and the how to in a really clear way, the information is there. Your psychic senses are there, and the information always makes sense as well. And so, this is why I say with such conviction, we're all psychic, because I've never seen anyone that hasn't been able to connect in with their intuition and psychic senses. And so, we all are psychic. It's just about finding the right tools to help us open these parts of ourselves up, because they're there and they're within us. So, if there's anything that you walk away from tonight with, I hope it's recognizing that you are psychic. Even if you don't feel it, know that it's there. Know that these senses and these abilities are within you. They're within every single one of us. And it is a journey of moving through self doubt into self trust. I've taught so many people who had so much self doubt coming up and thinking that they'd never be able to read. And it does take time to let go of that self doubt. It's not usually, one reading it's gone, but it does start to shift. And the more you practice with your psychic senses, the stronger the trust becomes and the weaker the self doubt becomes as well. And so it starts to balance out, and then the self trust starts taking over as well. Self doubt is such a natural part of the journey, though. It does take time, practice, and commitment, showing up, develop your psychic abilities, and consistency as well to really step into trust. And that happens over time. And so you also might be wondering, how do I develop my psychic senses if I can, if they're there, if I'm able to? Doesn't it just open up magically one day? Like I spoke about just before, it opens up when you put in the effort and the work to, occasionally for people to just magically open up one day. But most of the time, it's when you choose to show up for it and when you choose to open these parts of yourself up. And so, with that, I like to teach people how to tune in on demand, right? And so, instead of waiting for a message to come in, waiting for your intuition to just switch on one day, that's where you actually get to learn the tools to choose when you want to tune in to psychic information, which is so empowering, because then you're not at the whim of, is it going to come through? When's it going to come through? You get to tune in when you need support with decision making, when you need to tune into these deeper parts of you for your path, for your soul, or what's right for you. And so learning to tune in on demand can be so empowering for your decision making in so many parts of life. And so you also might be wondering, how can I stay grounded and protect my energy, especially for the sensitive people here that are quite empathic or clairsentient, and you feel like you're picking up a lot of energy? How can I do that while staying psychically switched on or open? And so it's not mutually exclusive. You actually want to be really grounded as you open up your psychic senses and your psychic abilities. Otherwise, you're going to feel quite scattered. You're not going to know if you're coming or going, right? Or whose is what you're feeling, etc. And so it's really good to be working on grounding practices at the same time as opening up your psychic abilities as well, so that you're grounded and your intuition becomes embodied. Because some people, their psychic abilities can come from a space of being quite dissociated from their body. And so they're super open, they've been through a lot in their life, and there's dissociation or trauma, and it's hard to be in the body. And so they're out and about feeling everyone else's energy, or, journeying out there in the ether. And so we want to ground into our body, to work on our stuff, to heal our wounds and trauma, etc., so that our intuition, our psychic abilities can be embodied and can come through the body as well. And so I just want to speak a little bit about my journey with this work and what led me to teaching this work and sharing this work, etc. Some of you might resonate, some of you might be drawn to this work from a different space, but a lot of the time people have gone through some sort of dark night of the soul, right? Where their life turned upside down or they went through some big shifts. And so for me, it was health issues. For some people, it's grief and loss, maybe of a relationship or a job or a person in their life. Or for some people, it's feeling uninspired in their career or needing a career change as well. And so for me, it was chronic fatigue syndrome after some gut health issues when I went traveling in India. And so in that it caused me to ask the deeper questions because I could no longer do what I was usually doing at the time because I was stuck in bed and had to do some real soul searching and ask those existential questions. And I was feeling really disconnected and overwhelmed and ungrounded and out of my body, etc., but not very tuned in either. And so it was a very big time where a lot shifted, and I was led to different teachers that I'll share in a second that taught this work, and the path kind of opened up. And so some of you might resonate through health issues, some of you might resonate through other big life initiations that have come up for you. And so I want to honor my teacher, Benjamin Beams, who I trained with for 5 years, attending psychic and mediumship development circles in Port Melbourne with him. And I taught at his school for a couple of years as well, and then brought that work online during lockdown. And I've also been studying with Sharon Bolt and Joseph Callender from Shamanic Energy Training, which is the White Dragon lineage, for the last 7 years, training in animism, shamanism, magic, ceremony, shamanic clearing, and plant spirit work as well. And then I've also trained as a kinesiologist and mind body medicine practitioner for 2 years at College of Complementary Medicine to learn and understand more about the body and how to integrate the body into this work and into working with your psychic senses and your psychic abilities. So I find that can really support us in becoming more embodied as a practitioner and as a reader and just connected to our intuition in general. And so what I share now draws on these different disciplines as they're all very complementary of one another. And I believe personally that it's important to train or study with someone who's trained in the work that they're teaching, because there's a lot of people where there's channel teachings and they're great, but if they're in a modality that has been happening for eons, for centuries, then there's going to be a base level of framework that is a base level transmission that's really important to get from someone who knows what they're talking about and who has actually trained in the understanding and the theory of what they're sharing as well. And so, with this class, and I believe with anything, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Everything is its own spiritual belief system, its own discipline. And so, I highly encourage people to form their own spiritual belief systems as well with what resonates with them. And so, pick and choose what works for you, take what resonates, leave the rest. It's not a dogmatic space where my truth has to be your truth, etc. And so, what shaped the work that I teach now is what I spoke about with those teachers: psychic development, spiritualist principles of intuition, psychic development, mediumship, protections, grounding tools, and more, with shamanic, animistic, and high energetic awareness principles, filling in the gaps and the missing pieces as well. And because I find there can be sometimes some gaps in some of the teachings, or there's deeper energetic teachings, etc., that can really support with the psychic development teachings as well. And so it's ethical or grounded psychic development. And there's three key aspects that support you in deepening your intuition or your psychic senses and learning to trust your intuition. The first one is energy management. So we've spoken a little bit about that so far, but that's through learning psychic hygiene, energetic protections, grounding tools, and more. As well as the second one is self development. And so you're understanding your wounds, your patterns, where your mind's coming in and impacting or projecting as well. And that happens via when I teach deeper psychic development work and trainings, giving and receiving readings each week. They're very current, focused, present based readings. So there's reflection on those levels. And then also via a deeper understanding of working with the energy centers, also known as the chakras, because they are a map of consciousness that govern all these different areas of life and all these different areas of self. And so when we go deeper with unblocking those energy centers, we can deepen with ourselves. That way, the more awareness work or self development work we do, the less we project as we read. Because if we aren't aware of our patterns and our projections, etc., then when we read, we may be projecting. And so it's important for the self development aspect to come in as well. And then the third part of that is psychic sense strengthening. And so that's via working with the psychic senses, also known as the clairs, learning to receive or perceive information through your psychic senses and how to interpret that information and read psychically. So that's through different symbology, templates, languaging, etc. And so we're going to focus on the psychic sense strengthening part of those different aspects tonight because we've only got so much time. And so in Psychic Foundations, which is the 6-month psychic development mentorship training that I offer online, I cover all of those topics in much greater depth. And so that's going to be kicking off at the end of August. So I'll cover some more details around that at the end of the call tonight. So, what we're going to cover today is talking about intuition, what is a psychic, and the difference with mediumship, the 3 main psychic senses that I work with and teach on, but also what the 6 psychic senses are. But then understanding with those 3 psychic senses, clairsentience, clairaudience, and clairvoyance, how they may have already been showing up for you, and really practical, grounded ways in deepening them that may seem simple, but they make a huge difference, and how they've already been showing up, ways that you receive psychic information, as well as talking about dominant psychic senses, etc. And we'll do a little exercise to tune in, as well as some intuition building tips, and then a Q&A as well. This is just the very beginning of this work and these teachings. I could literally teach on clairsentience alone for 6 months, and so this is just a little snippet. We're not going to go into how to do psychic readings tonight because there's way too much set up for that. So that's why I teach that in my 6-month psychic development training, because I need to ensure that people have adequate grounding tools and psychic hygiene tools and protection tools to work with, so that you're not getting overwhelmed with information when you're opening up your psychic senses. So that would be very irresponsible of me to share how to do readings without all the framework and the basic understanding, as well as the grounding tools and how to stay safe and stable as you open up prior. So that part's really important. So that's why tonight we're going through just some grounded tools and tips to start working with these parts of you and how they show up. So I'd love to hear in the chat where you're connecting from, or what you're connecting with, or what you're excited to learn about as well, what's dropping in for you, or what you're resonating with as well. So when you share, it gives others permission to share as well. And the more energy you put into anything, the more energy you get out. So I would love to hear from some of you in the chat what you're wanting to learn about, or what drew you here, etc. And so we're going to first speak about what is intuition. And so it's that gut feeling, or that inner guidance, or that inner knowing that's usually related to us and aspects of our life, or things showing up in our life. And so it's intuitive guidance and messages coming in and coming through for us and for the people around us. And so it's closely linked with the psychic senses, also known as the clairs, but more closely linked with some more than others. But it's very much through the body and internally based as well. So it's closely related to clairsentience, which is the psychic sense of feeling, and claircognizance, which is the psychic sense of knowing. It really can deeply come in through those senses as well. And some examples, and these also kind of cross over with some of the psychic senses too. Say when you walk into a room after people have been fighting and you don't hear them fighting anymore, but you can tell, you can cut the tension with a knife, you can feel it, right? Synchronicities. So we were speaking about that before. It might be a message that has been coming through for you that then comes through another, or an animal that keeps showing up, or numbers that keep showing up, etc. Or just those unexplainable things where you're like, this can't just be chance, or what are the chances of that happening? Another funny one is knowing when someone's looking at you from another car. This is a fun one to try out at the stoplights and the traffic lights. Say you've probably had an experience where you've been sitting there and you're like, I can feel eyes on the back of my head. And so you look around and you catch someone that's looking at you. You can just feel it. Or when I've been looking at someone else, they can always feel it. And then they quickly look at you and you look away. And so it's a fun one to try out, because it absolutely shows us how energetically tuned in we are, more than we realize, more than we give ourselves credit for. And another one that might show up for some of you, or has been, is thinking about someone and then they start calling or they text you a moment later, or in that moment when you're thinking about them, you're picking up on their thought, or them thinking about you, going, I'm going to call them, and you start thinking about them and then the call comes through. And so some reasons why our intuition might be blocked are, again, babies, animals, and children are extremely psychic and really open. And you can tell by, babies that only want to be held by certain people.
Have we lost Eloise, guys?
Yeah, I think we might have.
Yeah, I think we have.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'll give her a sec.
Scott Jackson, EPR, HQ0LLIDRBFEA5AC.
Sorry.
No, you're on mute, Linda. Oh, if you must be talking to your person. How is everybody? Where are you guys from? I'm assuming we're all in Australia.
So I'm from a little town called Nagambie, so it's sort of near Shepparton.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, whereabouts are you from?
I'm from Frankston. Yeah, Bayside. What about everyone else?
I'm from Melbourne, Berwick.
Oh yeah, nice. Yep.
I work at Frankston Hospital actually.
Oh, good. Whereabouts?
I do the fit testing there in the thoracic area.
Yeah, wow. Yep. Have you been there for long?
3 years nearly. Oh, no more than that, 3.5 years.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's a great hospital, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
started off in COVID.
Oh, ew. That would have been really tough.
It was very tough.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm seeing things Perth, Western Australia, Blue Mountains. Oh, this is really cute. Nice. Wagga wagga. Oh, Byron Bay. Pretty. Canberra. Beenley. I gotta look that one up.
Me too.
Yeah. It's not just me.
Sunshine Coast.
At least we can ask each other questions because we know we're not reading each other. Oh, near Brisbane. Yeah, beautiful. Ah. Oh, Cheryl, are you putting your hand up? You can chat. I'm not the boss. I'm just chatting.
All right, back
Oh, there
on.
you are.
So sorry about that. We made it back on. So I'm going to get back into the PowerPoint. I told you the internet's been playing up a bit, so I'm hoping it's okay till the end. But if it cuts out again, I'll be back on as soon as I can. So I love that the chat's happening though, and everyone's still here. So yay. Amazing. So I'm just going to get the PowerPoint back up. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Where were we? We were in the middle of, here we go. We're in the middle of talking about reasons why we begin to shut our intuition down. So as children, we're quite open, but then there can be a lot of different reasons why this happens. And so this can be fear. And so what I mean by fear is you might have had a scary experience when you were younger, and you might have seen a ghost or felt really overwhelmed with energy. And in that, we naturally start to shut our intuition down because we believe it's not safe, right? Because it doesn't feel safe. We're like, that's, I don't know what to do with this. And we often don't have parents that we can talk to about that. Or if we do, they're like, oh, you're fine. That's not a thing. You're okay. And also, we might be scared of these aspects because we may have grown up with conditioning of, religion and the church can really demonize connecting with our intuition, connecting with our psychic abilities, right? And connecting with these parts of self. And so when that is quite demonized, that's when we'll naturally have a fear of that, or it's this really taboo, it's not okay thing. And so we also, from societal programming and schooling, etc., might shut those aspects of ourselves down, such as, if we're continuously taught in society or in school that the only things that are real are, scientific and quantifiable, then we don't give as much credit to our intuition. And so we grow up with those beliefs that it's not real, or that it's not something that's, it's all fake or made up, etc., until you have these experiences where you're like, it is so real, and you see that and you really start to see that. And so there's a lot of reasons why we can shut these parts of ourselves down. Another one is also ambiguous psychic development. So when people have gone to open up their psychic abilities again, and they're feeling closed down and they want to connect with these parts of themselves, and then they go to a space where they're there to develop their psychic abilities, but they're just told to see what comes, right? That can be a bit scarring because sometimes we need a bit more direction. Otherwise, we'll feel lost and we'll be like, well, nothing's coming. And so I've had multiple people come and study with me who had been to psychic development workshops where they were like, nothing came through. I was told to just see what comes. I don't think I can do this, but I really want to connect in with this part of me. And you're saying that everyone's psychic, so I should be able to, but I couldn't. And so I've taught multiple people who have had those experiences with ambiguous psychic development where they just thought they didn't have what it takes and they couldn't do it. But really, they just weren't being given the direction and the tools that they needed. That's it. And so that can scar us from trying again because we're like, oh, that didn't work. I can't do that. And so there's so many different things that can contribute to this feeling or to us being blocked or not connecting to these parts of ourselves. And what is a psychic? So a psychic is it's connected to our intuition, but on a deeper level, it's learning to read energy. It's perceiving energy, perceiving into people's energy fields or into the field. And so you can perceive into a person's energy field or a group's energy field. We could do a group reading for the group here, or you could tune into a different meditation group that you're running, or it might be tuning into a group of people or a group of friends, or it could even be the city of Melbourne and the collective there, right? Or it can be the collective in general. And so it's usually information about someone that you're reading for or information from spirit, but that does start to border on mediumship and is a bit of a gray area. And it's a very active state. So it's working with the clairs, also known as the psychic senses, and interpreting information as it comes through. And so it can often be information about the material and physical world, but it can also be very emotionally based because we're usually reading on the emotional body layer of the auric field. And so it can be about us, about the world around us, spiritual information as well, but it just depends. Mediumship is more so when we start to border on information from spirit coming through. There's gray areas between psychic and mediumship, but mediumship is more either proof of life after death, so reading with loved ones in spirit and bringing through specific information about them so that you can confirm that it's them that's coming through from the other side. Or it can be in a more broader sense, and there's lots of, different people and groups believe and have different definitions for mediumship. So some people see it as connecting with spirit. So that can be, connecting in with a guide, connecting in with a plant spirit, any sort of spirit is mediumship, whereas some see it as just proof of life after death from loved ones that have crossed over. So there's a couple of different definitions there, but that's more we're receiving information from something outside of us and relaying that. And the information comes through our psychic senses. So that's why I always start with psychic sense and intuition development before going into reading with spirit, reading with guides, mediumship development, etc. And so we're going to talk about the 6 psychic senses and what they are, and then go deeper with the first 3. And so clairsentience is the psychic sense of feeling. The audience is the psychic sense of hearing. Clairvoyance is the psychic sense of sight. And then claircognizance is the psychic sense of knowing. Clairolfactory is the psychic sense of smell. And clairgustation is the psychic sense of taste. These are all French words. And so, it means clear feeling or clear hearing or clear seeing, etc. And so we're going to focus on the first 3, and they're the first 3 I specialize in teaching people to read with those senses, because the last 3 are a bit more ambiguous. So claircognizance is something where it's harder to have symbology because it's just a knowing, right? Whereas clairsentience, the psychic sense of feeling, you've got feelings coming through the body. And clairolfactory and clairgustation, I find they come in more when they're coming through in mediumship readings. So you might taste the food that the loved one in spirit, that the spirit cooked or liked eating, or you might smell if they were a smoker, etc. So I find they come in a lot more through connecting with spirit and mediumship readings as well. But they all will naturally open up when they're meant to, when you're doing psychic development. And so we're going to focus on those first 3 psychic senses and speaking about them and opening them up. And so we're going to speak about clairsentience first. So again, the psychic sense of feeling. These are physical feelings. These are also emotions. So it can be ailments in the body, or it can also be emotions showing up. And so we've got different levels of clairsentience, subjective and objective, and they're interpreted in different ways. And so that's where there's certain symbology of the body for one, and then it's interpreted in another way for the other. And so it's connected to our solar plexus, which is one of the 7 main energy centers that we were talking about before for self-development. And so each of the psychic senses is associated with a certain energy center. And so you can work with the solar plexus, which is at the diaphragm and within, to start opening up and connecting with your clairsentience, because they're deeply connected. The more you unblock your solar plexus, the more you unblock your clairsentience, the more it can open up and flourish. The more you read with your clairsentience, the more your solar plexus begins unblocking, and those themes of your life and yourself and your psyche start really coming to the forefront as well. It's really interesting and being reflected. And so ways to work with the solar plexus is understand the themes that it works with, such as identity and self-worth, and start looking at those aspects or your patterning around that and how to work on those parts, as well as you can work with the color. Solar plexus is associated with the color yellow, so you might wear more yellow or eat more yellow foods, put more turmeric in your food, etc. Or you can work with yellow crystals. So there's lots of different ways, but I find the self-reflection work is the best work that you can do to start unblocking these energy centers as well. And also a tip to start opening your clairsentience, which I know sounds really simple, but it makes a huge difference. If you push your feelings to the side and you struggle to feel, or you run from them a little bit, or you're avoiding them or staying busy so that you don't have to feel, if you go numb or a bit blocked, then I really encourage you to actually create time to feel your feelings. Don't shy away from your feelings, because the more that you feel, the more capacity you have to feel on a clairsentient level. If you're completely blocked to your emotions and to feeling at all, then how are you going to feel energy, right? Because energetic sense or the psychic sense reflects the physical sense. So clairsentience is reflecting the physical sense of feeling. And so if you struggle to feel your emotions, how are you going to feel where someone else is at emotionally on a clairsentient level? And so it really helps with that understanding as well, because you're learning to open up to feeling and reading subtle energy, right? And so ways that you might have already experienced your clairsentience showing up is when you see a friend who isn't feeling well, because this can happen with physical feelings too, right? Not just emotions. And you go home experiencing those exact same symptoms, right? When you were fine prior. And so that's where it's like, okay, I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure you can't experience disease or pick something up that quickly, right? Where within an hour, suddenly you've got the same symptoms. I think it takes a little bit of time to get into the body and all the things. And so that's where you've energetically picked that up. And I've had that at times. And when I've realized it wasn't mine, it's shifted. It's really interesting how you can take on board that energy physically. Same with ailments, same with like a sore back, those sorts of things. Some of you as well might have had this happen emotionally. Say you're feeling fine and relaxed, and it's chill and quiet, and then you have a phone call with a friend and they're through a lot of frustration and anger and something's happened. And after that phone call, you're no longer speaking to them, but you feel that anger and frustration and a lot coming up, right? And so this can trigger our stuff, but also it can be us picking up that energy. So we need to learn to have boundaries and psychic hygiene and protection tools around that too, so that we're not taking on board everyone else's stuff, especially as you're starting to open up your clairsentience. So it's something to just notice. Does your energy shift when you've been speaking to someone or when you've seen someone from where it was before, right? And have you taken on board any energy or any emotions? Because that can absolutely happen. And so we're going to save questions till the end. So just copying and pasting them or just writing them down for later so you can pop them in at the end too. And so with clairaudience, which is the next psychic sense, it's about hearing, the psychic sense of hearing. And so this can come through in a myriad of different ways, such as through the voice of our thoughts. And that's when it gets really confusing or murky on how to tell the difference between our mind or our intuition, etc. Because when it's coming through in the voice of our thoughts, well, like it sounds exactly the same, but the feeling will be different. And so that's why clairsentience is really important to develop first. And so clairaudience is usually subjective. It takes a while and a lot of practice to work up to objective. And it can come in through, again, the voice of our thoughts, through psychic sounds. You know, you might hear the ocean or a drill or an alarm going off. It can come through songs, which is a way that really often comes up for a lot of people and they don't even realize it's their clairaudience communicating with them. But almost always when you have a song come into your head and you can't get it out, especially when it's out of nowhere, you know, if it's a song you've been playing on repeat, it's a bit of a different story. It's stuck in there. But when those songs pop in and we wake up with them in our head, in our awareness, or it just comes in throughout the day and we're like, I haven't heard that song in so long, that's a message. And so get to know the lyrics and the energy of the song or the message of the song and what it means to you, because that will be a message that's coming through on a clairaudient level. And many different ways that clairaudience comes through as well. So it's a really dynamic level, which I love. And so it's connected to the throat chakra, the throat energy center. So again, working with the throat to start opening up and connecting with the clairaudience. Things like humming, toning, and singing are really good for this, especially if you have quite a blocked throat and you struggle to speak up or struggle to use your voice or you feel a lot of blockages there. And also working with the color blue, because that's connected to clairaudience and to the throat energy center too. So wearing more blue crystals, or eating more blue foods, blueberries, etc. And so another one with that is also looking at expression, because the throat center is all about our expression, our expression of our purpose, our expression of our blueprint, etc. And so just noticing how you're feeling in your expression. And if you feel like you can speak your truth, or if you feel really blocked in that, so you can start working with your throat again. And another one and tool that's really simple to start opening up your clairaudience is to practice deep active listening if you're quite a talkative person. And I'm quite a talker, and this is something I've really had to work on, but not even, when someone's talking, you're like, oh, what about this? What about that? Learning to not, and to just sit there in the silence and in the space and create the space for it, and learning to practice deep listening where you're not needing to put your 2 cents in or respond every second sentence, etc., but just deep listening. Because again, if you struggle to listen without talking, then how are you going to listen to subtle energy and to the subtle frequencies and the subtleness of your clairaudience coming through, right? And so practicing deep active listening is going to expand the sense of hearing and then the psychic sense of hearing, right? And your clairaudience. It does also go the other way, where if you're someone where you're very on the quiet side already, and I know there's a few of you here, then if you struggle with speaking up, practice communicating more, practice speaking more in front of other people or in front of groups, communicating your truth more, etc., because that's going to expand your throat energy. Because if you struggle to speak much, then it's going to be quite closed down or blocked, right? And so that can help to really expand the throat energy as well, and your clairaudience, so that you can tune into the deep listening. And so a simple way that it's already been coming in for you would be songs, right? I'm sure you've all had an experience where a song has come in. So starting to look at the messages behind the songs that come through, because it is clairaudience information that's coming through. Another way that it might have been showing up for you, and this might have happened for a few of you here, is when you're picking up on people's thoughts and thinking that they're your own. And, this happens when people are like, oh, I was just thinking that when you've said something. Or it's like you read my thoughts, or you say something and they're like, I've been thinking about that for the last 5 minutes. And that's how you know you've picked up on their thought, not them on yours, because they've been thinking about that, whereas you just said it as it came up, right? And so you've tuned into what they're thinking about as well on a clairaudient level, and oftentimes thought it was your own thought, right? And so that's where it takes time to really discern the difference between these different thoughts coming through, or if it's intuitive psychic information, etc. And then next we've got clairvoyance, which is the psychic sense of sight. And so again, we've got subjective and objective, different symbology and interpreted in different way, different languaging. It's connected to the third eye energy center, so in between the brows here and within. And so you can, again, work with the third eye to start opening up and connecting with your clairvoyance, because they're deeply associated. The third eye can be about discernment, can be about spiritual connection and developing a spirituality. It can be about seeing the truth. And so just starting to look at those themes and how you can work with them in your life, as well as the third eye is connected to the color indigo. So again, more indigo foods or crystals, or connecting with that color, wearing that color more, etc. But the deep introspection of the themes of the third eye can be really supportive. Looking at the self and who you really are without masks or layers, etc. And so again, a really practical way to start opening up your clairvoyance is one, meditation. So meditation and subjective clairvoyance are pretty much the same thing, right? And so when you're seeing in your mind's eye, that's more subjective clairvoyance, and that needs interpretation with symbology in a certain way. And so every time you meditate and visualizing, that's when you are building that muscle of clairvoyance. So it is literally the same thing. The more you meditate and visualize, the easier it is for you to tune into your clairvoyance and read on that level as well. It's really deeply connected. So that's a really simple way to start opening it up. But also themes of the third eye, practice discernment with information. Don't take on board everything, and just tune into what feels right for you, right? And practice seeing the truth, which can be a really uncomfortable one, seeing the truth in dynamics, seeing the truth of, shadows coming up, seeing the truth in situations, because sometimes we are so guarded or skewed in our perception by our past experiences and hurts and things that we haven't worked through, right? And it's an ongoing process, but you can tune into how can I see the truth more, and take off the rose-colored glasses and not trick myself. And so the more you see the truth, the more you can see energy, right? The more you can discern and see the subtlety too. And so again, it's deeply connected and reflective. And so again, a way that it would have been showing up for you already is meditation, of course. If you're doing any sort of visualization in your meditation, that is your subjective clairvoyance in action. So the more you do that, the clearer it becomes, the easier it gets. And then another one is sometimes people get images before they fall asleep. And so, you might be somewhere else or connecting with completely different people that you've never met before, etc. So that can be our clairvoyance as well, tuning into different experiences or maybe different aspects of our soul, living different life experiences or different timelines, or just tuning in accidentally. Or you might also see the glow of the first layer of someone's auric field around them. And so that can sometimes be a gray or electric blue or light blue tinge around the head, often, especially if they're in front of a white or black wall behind them. Then, if you really soften your eyes, you might start to see the faint glow that comes out. And so that is also the first layer of their auric field. And so you can see that with your clairvoyance at times too. Beautiful. And so we're just going to speak about dominant psychic senses as well, because we'll do an exercise in a second to tune into the psychic senses, and you might have one or maybe two that are stronger than the others. And so your dominant psychic sense can absolutely change and probably will. So even if you feel not connected to one of the senses, it doesn't mean you don't have it. It just might take a bit more focus to open up. You'll usually have a stronger sense to start with, but you get to choose which sense you want to open up and focus on, especially if one feels quite closed down. And so that was my journey with clairaudience. I really struggled to read on that level when I started doing psychic development and learning the tools and the symbology and the templates and how to read with it. So the more I'd practice it, at the start, it was such a struggle, really hard to connect into compared to clairvoyance or clairsentience, and hardly anything would come through. And so I knew that was a psychic sense I needed to focus on more and more and more, because it needed some support and focus to open up. And so the more I read on that level, because I had the tools to do that, because I was studying psychic development and knew how to read on that clairaudient level, the more I focused there, the more my clairaudience opened up. And the more it became clearer and easier to tune into. And then it became my main psychic sense because I focused on it. I focused on developing it and opening it up. And so another good thing to look at is what wakes you up at night or in the morning. Is it feelings? Is it sounds? Is it bright light? What wakes you up? Because that's where that physical sense is going to be quite developed and quite sensitive. And so usually that will be reflective on an energetic level too, where that psychic sense or that energetic sense will be quite sensitive as well. And so for me, it's actually sound, right? And my clairaudience is probably my main psychic sense at the moment. And so, and again, that can change as well as time goes on, depending where I focus. And so for me, it's sound, and any sound will wake me up usually, right? For some people, it's bright light. For some people, and so that's clairvoyance. For some people, it's feeling someone come home, or it's feeling someone move in the bed, etc. And so just noticing what sense wakes you up, because that will be a sensitive sense that might mean that psychic sense is a bit more sensitive and switched on as well. And also noticing your language. What words do you use a lot of? Because that's how we experience the world around us, right? And so you'll start really noticing your language and noticing how you're experiencing the world and the senses that you experience the world through. Your language also gives you hints of your psychic senses. And all of these senses have specific language and symbology that get put into a psychic reading structure and template that I teach in the 6-month psychic development training, so that it's not ambiguous and you're not left guessing how does it all fit together, or what does it mean, or how to put the message together. There's real direction to the reading as well. And so it's easier than you think, and everyone shocks themselves with the fact that they can do it and how accurate the information is when working with that template too, because it's been passed down verbally, these teachings, for decades and centuries. And so they work. And so you absolutely can connect in with all of your psychic senses, even if one feels a lot more dominant than the other. You get to choose which ones to develop, which ones to focus on when you've got the tools to. And so we're just going to go through a few tips and tools to start deepening your intuition now and in your everyday life. And then we're going to get into an exercise to connect with our psychic senses before the Q&A and ending. So learn your intuitive yes and no, and journal and keep tabs on it. So the more you write down, the more you reflect on the intuitive and psychic messages coming through. And then you look back and go, okay, was that correct? You can look back in hindsight, right? And go, was that correct? Did that make sense? Was that my mind telling me? And you look back and you can really start to build trust through that process. But learning your intuitive yes and no looks like experiencing how yes and no feels in your body. And so think about eating a food that you really love, right? What's your favorite food? Think about eating that food. If it helps, you can close your eyes down. You don't have to, but think about that food that you love and notice what happens in your body. For me, it's a softening or an expansion or an openness that I feel in my chest, right? Think about a food that you really don't like and eating that food, right? Something that you're like, oh, I hate that. For me, it's, licorice, the aniseed taste. And so thinking about that, I feel the contraction in my chest and in my body, rejecting that, being like, I don't want that, right? You can do it with smells as well. Think about a smell that you love, your favorite flower, or your favorite perfume or essential oil, or the smell of your favorite food. Again, what happens in your body? Is there an opening? Is there an expansion or a welcoming of that? What happens and how does your body receive that? And then think about a smell that you really don't like. It could be dog poo, or it could be walking down the street on bin day, or something that you really don't like, or a smell like an oil that you really don't like. And again, what happens in your body? For me, I just want to put my shoulders forwards and be like, oh, not that, right? I feel the contraction, the closing down. And so that's your intuitive yes and no, the feeling of expansion, the feeling of contraction. So start building your intuitive neural pathways by tuning in, by asking. So instead of waiting for the intuitive messages to come in, start tuning in yourself. Take your power back with your intuition and go, okay, I'm going to tune into the answer to this question, or I'm going to tune into what is better for my time today. I'm going to tune into, should I follow this pathway over here? Should I talk to this person, etc., etc.? And so you're building the neural pathways by asking your intuition, because then it's naturally going to start speaking to you more and more and more, because those neural pathways are built with your intuition. So start tuning into your intuitive yes and your intuitive no, and building those neural pathways by asking. Ask your gut as well. Check in with your gut and go, what's my gut saying? Does it feel off? Does it feel contracted? Does it feel good? Right? Get to know your energy. That's one of the best things that you can do as well to protect your energy, is know what your energy feels like, right? Without anyone else's energy in your space, how does your energy feel, right? What do you feel like outside from everyone and everything else? What is your energy? And so that way, when you've picked up someone else's energy or when you're off, because you know what your energy feels like, right? You also can start to feel other people's energy coming in, because again, you know what your energy feels like. So get to know your own energy. Body dousing is where you stand up straight with your feet together and just notice what way your weight gently falls when you say yes and when you say no. So you get your body dousing yes, you're using your body as a pendulum. You're getting your yes and your no. And you'd say a true statement like, my name is Eloise and that's true for me, and I fall forward for yes. It's just a gentle movement of my body weight. Or I fall backwards for no, but for some people it's completely different. So get to know your yes and no with your body dousing as well, and just say yes and notice which way your weight falls towards. And follow your excitement. That's usually your soul communicating with you. When you've got curiosity, passion, and excitement, there's something there for you, right? Whether it's with this work and developing your psychic senses, whether it's with a completely different modality, whether it's with something completely different altogether, right? Whether it's with travel, but noticing your curiosity and your excitement, and how can you follow more of that? And then for the question I get asked all the time about your intuition and your mind and discerning the difference between that, for now, and it's a good point to start with, to start discerning the difference, because again, it takes time. It's not an overnight process. And I'm really honest about that with psychic development. Again, you heard at the start, I trained for 5 years to be able to teach this work and feel really sufficient in the reading work. And so it's different for everyone, but it does take time. And so start to feel the difference between your intuition and your mind. Does it feel like the information's coming from here and you've thought about it? Or does it feel like it's coming from the body or outside as information coming in psychically? So just start to notice and feel the difference. So what we're going to do is just an exercise to meditate and connect in with our psychic senses and just see what ones are a bit more dominant or showing up for us. So it's just going to be a 5-minute meditation. And so closing your eyes and getting nice and comfy. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you don't have to. You can just gently lower your gaze and soften your eyes. But if you do feel comfortable closing your eyes down now and just going inwards. And just taking a deep breath into your belly and out the mouth. Letting your shoulders drop and dropping into the space. Dropping into your body and yourself. And in this space, just visualizing yourself wandering or walking around a beautiful pine forest. There's pine needles and old pine needles all over the floor. There's pine trees everywhere, pine cones. So noticing yourself in that pine forest. And we're going to first focus on our feelings. So as you wander around that beautiful pine tree forest, noticing the feeling of the pine needles, the forest floor against your feet, the physical sensations. You might even go up and feel the trunk of one of the pine trees and just noticing how that feels on the palm of your hand. Or you might touch some of the pine needles and the branches on the pine trees, noticing how that feels. And also noticing your emotions, how you feel emotionally, what that forest incites within you, what shifts within you emotionally. And then we're going to focus on hearing. What sounds do you hear in the pine forest? Again, it might be the sound of the pine needles and branches underneath your feet or the forest floor and the rustling. It might be the birds overhead, the snapping of branches or twigs. Or maybe even the rustling of the wind in the branches and the trees. And any other sounds that you hear. As you start to focus on everything that you're seeing, the colors of the trees, of the forest floor, even the texture and detail of the bark on the trunks of the trees. The different sizes of trees and all the different branches. How many pine trees you see in that forest. Maybe the color of the sky above. Anything else that you see in that space, in that forest. Really taking in again the textures and the colors and the brightness. And then just letting that go and calling all of your energy back into the here and now, back into your body and your physical space, feeling your feet against the floor, the sensations on the soles of your feet, feeling your sit bones against the chair, feeling your body and slowly opening your eyes as you bring your entire awareness into the here and now, maybe just rubbing your legs or your hands, grounding into the present moment. And just reflecting on what senses were really clear for you or what ones came through quite easily and what senses felt not as clear. And you can pop that in the chat if you feel like sharing, if it was feelings, if it was hearing, if it was sight, but what senses came through. It doesn't mean that you don't have the other ones. It just means that's the one that's more easily accessible for you right now. And the other ones might take a bit more TLC to focus on to open up. That's it. Doesn't mean you don't have them, but it's just going, cool, this is the sense or two that are coming through more clearly at the moment. And that can absolutely shift as well. So we've got clairaudience, touch, smell and feelings, sound not so much, feelings, beautiful, so clairsentience, feeling, hearing, seeing, beautiful, all three. Verbal description and knowledge of what it looks like, beautiful, touch and sound, so clairsentience and clairaudience, seeing, feeling, clairvoyance and clairsentience, vision, feelings and hearing, all three. Feeling and seeing, beautiful, surprisingly my sense of smell, yeah, the smell came in a little bit too, hey. Usually it's clairsentience and clairvoyant, hearing, seeing, feeling, clairaudience and seeing, beautiful. So it's a very well-rounded group. Sometimes we just have like everyone in the same sense. It's really interesting, but this has been quite varied, but a lot of feeling as well. Visual, but a constant humming, feeling, couldn't see or hear much though. Vision the strongest. I felt and hearing also. Smell, seeing, feeling, hearing. Beautiful. We've got quite a lot of all three. Amazing. Sound was best. Visuals and sense were good too. Smell and sight. Beautiful. So there's lots of different senses coming through. Smell, amazing. Lots of smell, which is great. That's the clair olfactory coming through too. I really noticed that too with the smell of pine coming in and that real fresh scent coming in too. So that was very well rounded. So well done. So that's a meditation and exercise that you can work with as you'd like to as well. So the more you tune in with your senses, the more they're going to expand and the more you can see where you're at with them as well. And absolutely, it can be linked to your learning styles in terms of what sense is stronger. It's all reflective. Beautiful. All right. So I'm just going to speak a little bit about the course. That's the 6-month mentorship. I'm just going to make sure everyone is on mute. There we go. So I'm just going to speak about the course and the training, and then we'll go into a Q&A. So any questions coming up from what we've covered today and what is coming up around the psychic senses. And so Psychic Foundations is the 6-month psychic development online group mentorship and training. And really, it's a space for support as you open up your gifts, for mentoring, a space where you can feel like you belong. Because I know a lot of people stepping into this work, and myself included when stepping into this work, felt like a black sheep of the family, of friends, etc. So people who really understand you and what you're going through and the opening that you're going through too. And place where you can practice. You're going to be giving and receiving readings pretty much every week so that the psychic senses really land and integrate for you. It's not just theory, it's the actual doing of it, because that's when it really lands. People to speak to who get it, to finally feel like you belong, you know, in this space and with your spiritual nature, and a space to feel safe and like you can be yourself and bring all the woo woo and the synchronicities and the weird things that are going on. And in that, I've also seen lifelong friends and connections be made as well, which is so beautiful from this work, because you connect on a really deep level. You see each other on a really deep level, giving and receiving readings each week with this group. And so it's a safe space full of connection and support as you open up your psychic gifts and your intuition. And so every week you'll be giving and receiving psychic readings. And so there'll be theory with new techniques as well, so that you can really hone in on your gifts and have your intuition begin to communicate with you and deepen in your everyday life. Because again, there's such a deep connection between your psychic senses and your intuition. So the more you learn to do psychic readings, the more your intuition's naturally going to be opened up, right? Because they're deeply connected. And in that, we do split up the psychic senses and work with them one by one, so they all have a chance to open up, even the ones that don't feel strong or dominant. That's how you open them all up, because you do have all of them within you, but they do need to be given the space to flourish. So it's every week for 6 months. So 26 2-hour calls over the 6 months. So weekly calls on a Thursday night. Most containers aren't capped at a certain number of people. This is. So it is really intimate as well. And it's not just a course, it's a skill development and training. So it's not just self-development or focusing here or those sorts of things. It's a modality that you walk away with, that you can start a business with, or that you can bring into your already existing business and clients and sessions, etc. So you're getting coaching, mentoring, teachings, support, theory, techniques, and a space to really integrate your psychic senses, which is a skill that is absolutely priceless. Whether you work with it for your own connection to your intuition in your everyday life, and whether it's for you, a lot of people do come and do this training for their own spiritual connection and their own connection to themselves and to their intuition, their psychic abilities, and these parts of themselves, or whether you're integrating it into your business or your work, or wanting to step into being a psychic reader and starting your own business, or bringing it into your already existing modalities and sessions. So people come for different reasons. It's going to run on Thursday nights, Melbourne time, so that's Australian Eastern Standard Time, from 7:30 till 9:30 p.m. Thursday nights. It's all recorded in case you miss any calls as well. So you get to keep the recordings for life. So you can go through these teachings as much as you'd like and continue deepening. And we're going to begin at the end of August. So Thursday, the 29th of August. And so this is a skill that also really pays off in time, because you're able to start your own business as well if you're someone where you resonate with it and it's fulfilling work for you. And so to get certified, you do need to do the year in level 2, which I talk about after. And in that, when you feel confident and adequate as a reader, you can charge $200 a session, or well-known and highly sought-after readers charge up to $500 and beyond. But you do that when you really, really, really know what you're doing and have been doing it for a long time. And so in doing 22 readings, you would have paid off the course. It's up to you how many readings you want to do per week, you know, depending on your energy levels and what feels good and right for you and aligned for you. I know readers who do up to 20 readings a week. you wouldn't start there because you'd burn yourself out. And we talk about all that sort of stuff as well in the training. So you definitely don't start going from 0 to 100 or 0 to 20 readings a week. You build that up, but it's up to you how you wish to work with that when you know what you're doing and how to manage your energy too. And as a comparison, uni degrees are between 50 to 100K or beyond if you're doing masters, etc., which prepares you for a career where you usually on average in Australia make 60 to 80K a year. That's the average salary, right? With this work, it depends how many readings you want to do and can start doing group readings as well. So really the sky's the limit. You read for groups of people at once, but you could do 8 readings a week over 2 or 3 or 4 days and make approximately $1,600 a week, which is approximately 82K a year. So it's very viable if it's work that calls you and calls your soul and it's fulfilling and exciting to you. You don't just do it from a space of money, but also just explaining it's very viable if this is a business and a modality that you want to step into and something that lights you up. It can support you and it can be your career too. And I've been so lucky to step into that as well. And so it's something that absolutely can be a really beautiful thing to step into as your purpose work if you're feeling that pull deep within. But a lot of people also join from the space of wanting deeper connection with themselves and with their intuition in their everyday life so they can make more soul aligned and soul centered decisions. So, in that, there's different reasons why people join. For the first month, we're going to focus on all the basics around psychic readings, how to be really ethical with it and not get karmically entangled with other people, and how to work with it in a really grounded way, as well as grounding tools, protection tools, psychic hygiene, energy management, etc., so that you're starting to open up and read from a really solid place where you're not getting overwhelmed by energy because you've got the tools that you need to work with when you start feeling other people's energy being picked up, etc. And so that way you've got a really solid framework, but it also affects every other area of your life in such a great way, having these psychic hygiene tools. And then we focus on the psychic senses one at a time. So clairsentience first for a month, just reading with the psychic sense of feeling and the different levels and learning the symbology around that. Then clairaudience, the psychic sense of hearing for a month. And again, the different symbology levels, how to receive that, etc. And then the next month, month 4, is clairvoyance for a month as well. And so the symbology of sight and of the different symbologies that you can read oracle cards through, etc. But we're just focusing reading with the psychic senses because they're within you instead of needing anything outside of you. And then the month 5, the month after that, we start reading with guides and just the basics of reading with guides as well, because that can come in on a psychic level. And then month 6, we start to put all the psychic senses together, how to read with them together, how to integrate them, how to do longer readings, etc., and how to really integrate that so your intuition is embodied in your everyday life, is guiding your everyday life. And so in that, I do have the early bird, the pre-sale actually, that's available at the moment till it's publicly launched. And so the price up front is $4,111. And if you pay in full, you get 2 half-an-hour one-on-one intuitive mentoring sessions with me as well, which is really exciting because my books have been closed for a long time. And also you can do payment plans if that works. So it's more accessible. And so $175 a week for 6 months or $88 a week for the year, or contact me to organize a payment plan option that works for you if you need $50 a week, extended, etc. So send me an email, respond to the emails that you got the Zoom link and everything from if you want a different payment plan option, or if you want to have a phone chat as well to see if this work is right for you. So send me an email if you want to have a chat and we can organize that. Also, I'm offering, you'll get a bonus half-an-hour one-on-one psychic reading with me before we start the course at the end of August if you sign up with the early bird. And so it gets publicly launched in 2 weeks. So this is only available for the next 2 weeks. And then the price will be going up and you won't get the extras as well. So send me a message or email if you have any questions, or if you want to organize a time to have a phone call to make sure it's right for you, or if you want to organize a different payment plan option. Otherwise, we've got the link here that I'm going to pop in the chat in a second as well. And then from there, I'll also post the link with the recording when I send out the email tomorrow of the recording of tonight's class if you want to go through the class again or anything like that. So the details will be there, but just send me an email if you're interested to join. There are limited spots and there's limited pre-sale spots as well. So we're going to get on to questions and any questions that came up from the class. And I'm just going to post the link as well while people are typing in questions. So if there's any questions that came up for anyone, anything that you want to know, then please pop them in the chat now and we can get into them before we finish for the night. But thank you all so, so much for being here and for receiving and for being open to the exercises and just being willing to deepen with your intuition, because it is such a fulfilling journey on so, so many levels. And so it's so exciting having people who are showing up for this work and for themselves and for the deepening with this part of themselves. So thank you all for being here. Questions welcome, otherwise we will leave it there. But it has been such a joy to be here with you all, and I hope that with all of it you walk away knowing that even if you feel like you've never connected to your intuition or psychic senses, it is within you and it's always been there, and you can tune into it when you choose to. Those abilities are there for you. Beautiful. Thank you all so much. Thank you for all the messages in the chat. What I mean by subjective versus objective is where we're not going to do a group reading, but subjective versus objective is where you interpret them in different ways. So they come through with those senses in different ways. And so it's hard to describe, you know, without going into the symbology and all that sort of stuff. So really there's different symbology and ways of interpreting them, and they feel or you see them differently. And so there's different levels and symbologies for the same psychic sense instead of it all just being clairsentience or clairvoyance. And my sign is Aries as well. So thank you, Regan, for popping that question in. Can bad energy block you? Yes and no. We can be blocked when we've picked up other people's energy or when we've got not so great energies in our field. But at the same time, we need to work on our own boundaries around that and clearing that. And so yes and no, because the energies can be blocking you, but we also need to work on where's the boundary issue and why are we holding this? So why is that coming in to block us? And beautiful, just checking if there's any more questions. Do you think that the course would be beneficial to those of us that don't want to make a career out of it? 100%. So I also know people who are accountants who have done psychic development work, people who are architects, and they still use their intuition and psychic abilities in their own ways, and they don't even say it, but that helps with their creative process. That helps with the work that they do. Whatever career you're in, it can support it, but also it can support you. The basis of psychic development work is actually not about being the best psychic. It's about becoming more aligned with your soul and what you came here to do and your blueprint. And so it might help you find the career that's right for you, even if it isn't reading, right? And so being connected to your intuition can help that tenfold because you're connected to yourself and that inner guidance. And so you're guided to where it's right for you. So it can change your life in so many ways. I know a lot of people that I've sat within circles or that I've taught that haven't ended up going on to become a psychic reader or made a career out of it, but it's enhanced whatever work they're doing or shifted their life in such beautiful ways. They can read people like nobody's business. And so they're discerning with who they let into their lives and their hearts and their time, etc. So it can support you in so many different ways. Really good question. Amazing. So thank you all so much. It's been so beautiful to be here with you all. I'll get the recording out to you tomorrow, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your evening. Thank you for your time, and it's been so nice to connect with such a beautiful interactive group. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Much love.